Hey guys, I am Nekisha from Canada Immigration TV. In this video I'm going to talk about why immigrants have a promising future in Canada's labor market. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, please watch this video all the way to the end. For the most recent immigration news and updates, please like and share to this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button icon of the notification bell. Let's get started with the video. Canada now has the lowest unemployment rate in its history. On the surface, given the coronavirus pandemic, this may appear strange. However, given the major demographic shifts that were transforming Canada's workforce prior to the pandemic and will continue to transform it over the next decade, there was little doubt that the labor market would recover. One of the most pressing concerns in immigration policy is how a recession will affect the labor market performance of immigrants who obtain permanent residence during economic downturns. According to research, such immigrants may have a negative impact on their labor market outcomes for the rest of their careers in Canada. This is concerning in light of the significant shock to the Canadian economy at the beginning of the pandemic, as well as Canada's desire to welcome the highest levels of immigration in its history. However, a closer examination reveals that the COVID recession is distinct, and immigrants who have recently arrived or will be arriving in the near future are still well positioned for a bright future in the Canadian labor market. More Canadian workers retiring. The first reason is the exodus of baby boomers from the Canadian labor force. This exodus helps to explain why, prior to the COVID recession, Canada had its lowest unemployment rate ever, and has now achieved another historic low in the unemployment rate despite the pandemic's continuing impact on the Canadian and global economies. Canada has approximately 20 million workers, 9 million of whom are baby boomers. Within the next decade, all 9 million of these baby boomers will reach Canada's retirement age of 65. More of them are retiring, resulting in a larger labor market gap. Historically, Canada has been able to completely replace retirees with young Canadian graduates finishing their education and entering the labor force, but this is no longer the case. Because of Canada's low birth rate, the country must rely on other sources of talent to replace retiring workers. Replacing retiring workers is critical to keeping the economy running and ensuring that the tax base is large enough to support the services that Canadians have access to, such as education and health care. This is especially important given that Canada's healthcare spending will rise as the population ages. Other underutilized talent sources include women, people with disabilities, older workers, Indigenous peoples, and disengaged youth, among others. Adding more of them to the labor force, however, would not fully compensate for all retirees, even if their employment participation rates were raised to the national average. This helps to explain why immigration is so important to Canada's economic success. Prior to the pandemic, they accounted for up to 100% of annual labor force growth in Canada on a few occasions, and this will become the norm over the next decade. With so much experience and skill leaving the labor market, Canadian employers will need to turn to any and all talent sources they can find in order to keep their operations running, which is exactly what we are seeing now. The aging of the Canadian labor force is causing the unemployment rate to fall and wages to rise, which benefits both Canadian and immigrant workers. What we're seeing now will almost certainly continue as more baby boomers retire. We should also take note of the significant changes in immigration policy over the last decade, which have an impact on the labor market outcomes of newcomers. More competitive selection process. The shift to a more competitive selection process for skilled immigrants is one example. In recent years, the federal government, provinces, and territories have changed their selection criteria to account for human capital factors that research has shown to result in better economic outcomes for immigrants. Candidates who are young, well-educated, fluent in English and/or French, with professional work experience, and other bonuses such as having Canadian education and/or work experience, for example, are awarded a higher CRS score, increasing their chances of obtaining permanent residence and ultimately succeeding in the Canadian labour market under the Express Entry Comprehensive Ranking System, CRS. More immigrants selected from within Canada. Another significant shift has been the increase in the number of permanent residents chosen from within Canada. Prior to the pandemic, immigrants from other countries accounted for roughly 70% of those who arrived through Express Entry. However, this figure dropped to 30% last year, with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, relying more on in-Canada candidates to meet its immigration targets in the face of pandemic-related disruptions such as travel restrictions. It remains to be seen whether IRCC will prioritize selecting immigrants from other countries or from within Canada in the aftermath of the pandemic. However, Immigration Minister Sean Fraser's mandate letter directs him to identify more immigration pathways for in-Canada candidates. Furthermore, through the Provincial Nominee Program, Plug and Play, and other channels, provinces and territories are increasingly selecting more in-Canada candidates. The trend of in-Canada hiring is also supported by Canadian government research, which shows that former international students and temporary foreign workers benefit in the labour market from their Canadian experience once they gain permanent residence. More Canadian government investment to help newcomers. The increased investment by IRCC in immigrant settlement services such as workforce and language training is a third major factor to consider. IRCC now spends approximately $2 billion per year on such services, up from approximately $350 million per year 20 years ago. These services are also provided prior to arrival to provide immigrants with useful information and assistance in expediting the settlement process once they arrive in Canada. Conclusion. When all of these factors are taken into account, one can be more confident that the COVID-induced recession will result in less labour market scarring for newcomers than previous recessions. In comparison to the past, Canada has a historically tight labour market, a more competitive selection process, selects more immigrant candidates from within the country, and spends more money to assist immigrants in succeeding. If you have not subscribed, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click on that notifications bell icon. See you soon.